Welcome to my first ever over stroke underrated. This is a piece I'll be doing where I look back at a game that has been out for a few months at the very least that I didn't get to review at the time, or a game that came out before I ever started reviewing games. The rush to get out a review, I believe, can lead to reviews not being accurate or just following the general trending opinion of a video game, and that's something I want to avoid. It's a style that allows me to approach a game with a clear head, having thought about the intricacies, or lack thereof, the game has offered. We use a 60-40 weighted average of a critic score versus a review score to set the bar from which we decide if the game is over or underrated. Are we getting this? Yeah.
Do you understand?
So the first game to get this treatment, well, you know what, let's start easy and go with The Last of Us Part 1. No controversy, nothing to attract any hatred, just a nice... Oh, wait a second. I have a phone call from my YouTube producer. Hello? Yeah, I'm just doing the Last of Us Part 1 over-under you asked me to do. I'm sorry, what? You didn't ask me to do Part 1? You wanted Part 2? Oh God.
Shore it up, people. Nina Broderick's in the building. We're all going to die!
Okay, so jokes aside, Part 2 is a complex beast, and one that has sat with me for a really long time after I finished it. I'm going to take a deep dive into what I felt The Last of Us 2 was really about, and whether or not it hit those goals and objectives. I will touch upon the praise and criticism the game has received on release and leak, and put my own 2 pence worth in on the game. So let's set the bar first. The Last of Us 2 sits at 93% on Metacritic, and a 5.7% user rating on Metacritic. Which means when we weigh up the different ratings to 60-40 weighting, we have a rating of 77.8%. Let's just call it 78% for argument's sake. Okay, let's go. Get your pitchforks ready. I'm ready to fall on my sword. Okay, so what is The Last of Us Part 2? Well, in simple terms, it's the sequel to one of my favourite games of all time, and in my opinion, one of the greatest games of all time, The Last of Us Part 1. Part 1 was a revolution in the use of video gaming as an emotional and storytelling vehicle. It was gripping as it was morally resonating. The ending stuck with me for as long as I could remember. What would you have done? As a father, or a brother, or an uncle? Would you have done any different? Could you let someone you love die for the greater good? It was fantastic, it was Hollywood-worthy storytelling, and it actually asked the player to question their own morality. It was utter genius, beginning to end. Not only that, but the soft touch provided by the loving relationship between Joel and Ellie was punctuated by the brutal, desolate world you were scavenging through. And just like that, the gaming world had fallen in love with this unlikely father and his adopted daughter. So fast forward, and it's time for Part 2. For a long time, I think myself and many other gamers thought there would not be a Part 2. It really felt like the ending to Part 1 was so good that it didn't really need much else. It was left to the player's imagination what happened. Those final scenes between Joel and Ellie, their facial expressions telling a much bigger story than any words ever could. I don't mind directional choices where they leave it open to the player's imagination. If it's done correctly, I think it can be very moving. However, it's clear from the offset in Part 2 that Joel and Ellie are just not right. I won't go into the details because the truth is the details of their specific breakdown in this relationship doesn't really matter. What does matter is that they do not see eye to eye for a long period of time in the run-up to The Last of Us Part 2. You only find out that in the very last cutscene that there was some kind of peace made between the two, but not the type of peace that can cure a broken-hearted Ellie having seen her father figure brutally murdered. And for me, this is the overriding theme of The Last of Us Part 2. This is a tale of guilt, revenge, and dealing with one's own inner pain. Anyone who has lost a loved one with unfinished business or a sense of regret will know the burning pain it can put in your heart. The Last of Us Part 2 is, without a doubt, for me, a window into the whirlwind of emotions that consume you after the death of someone you truly love. And this, in itself, in my opinion, is the brilliance of The Last of Us Part 2. Because it's not only Ellie who is suffering, it's the players too who mourn the loss of Joel like no other video game character I have ever seen. And the kicker to the pain of Ellie and the player is the pain of the woman who kills Joel, Abby. The emotions of the death of Joel brought about in the gaming community further solidified Part 1 as one of the greatest games ever made. Not only that, but the sheer reaction to having to control and not kill Abby at the end of the game showed the game's optics on revenge are borne out through the player themselves. You may not have realised it, but the gamer became Ellie. They wanted to kill Abby, even though Abby's motivations are no different than Ellie's. Hell, the argument could be made that Abby's motives are lesser grey area than Ellie's. Now, of course, the controversy came that the player wanted to kill Abby because Ellie wanted to kill Abby. But of course, Ellie eventually changes her mind while the players did not, and that is where I feel there is actually a little bit of genius and bravery in what Naughty Dog have done. In a nutshell, that is the brilliance of the game, and more specifically the ending. The question this game asks is whether the desire for payback is something we ought to act on. Is revenge ever the moral thing to do? I know people here will say that there is hypocrisy in this, as Ellie butchers hundreds of people in a quest to realise she can't kill Abby. But I feel the final goal does justify the means. In video gaming terms, I'm not suggesting you go around and kill everybody. The gaming community's visceral desire to kill Abby at the end, and the utter anger at the inability to do so, to me, showed that Naughty Dog had succeeded in their objectives here. They might have got a whole lot of thumbs down on videos, but they delivered an incredible meditation on revenge, death, and forgiveness. Is it more art than a video game? Quite possibly. That was a design choice that Naughty Dog had made. So let's talk criticisms. Now the sad part is, I feel a lot of this experience was ruined by the leaks. For the record, I did not read, watch, or listen to a single thing about the leaks. I wanted to form my own opinion and I avoided everything that was said. I'm not on Twitter or social media, so it's a bit easier for me to do than the normal person. Also, I do feel like psychologically it can be very easy to be subliminally biased.
They said my father was here.
Did they?
You're the one who says I need a father figure.
Yes. A father figure.
By seeing these leaked opinions and having a preconceived notion about whether or not the game or the story is going to be bad. What it leads it to happening is leads to you looking for parts of the game that will confirm this bias that's already been formed. Now, I'm not saying, that happened with everyone. I get it. Some people would not have enjoyed this game because as a game, it has its flaws. So let's get into that. Okay, so yes, you probably get Abby shoved down your throat a little bit too often. Creatively, I can see why it was done, but it wasn't pulled off correctly. They wanted the player to question both sides of this story. In a world where the media often portrays one set of people as bad and the other as the saviour, all in the name of justifying war and death, Naughty Dog asked the question of, what happens when you are both sides of that story? Of course though, no amount of playing Abby can make you love Joel or Ellie less. Even I found the scene where you have to fight Ellie as kind of a mini boss fight as Abby extremely uncomfortable to watch. But the point is it was meant to be uncomfortable. Because here's a bit of a spoiler. War, death and revenge isn't a bed of roses. We as a society glorify war way too often. Naughty Dog brutally brought war and murder to your TV and it made us feel uncomfortable, and so it should. If there is a question that is justified here, it's, is this game even fun? Like, is it balloons falling from the sky fun?
This is so frustrating. I just wish there was some way we could connect.
Is it your favourite Oreo cake fun?
Pat! Cake!
Cake, yes, cake. We like a bit of cake, don't we? I know I do. I love it. I do. I love a bit of cake. I do. I just like cake. I'm just one of those people. I come home and all I want is like to get. I just love cake. I just love cake. I just love a bit of cake. Cake. I love a bit of cake. Cake. Lovely.
No, it's not. It's pretty grim. It's dark. But just like some of the best music in the world is depressing as hell, so is this game at times. And I totally get it, that this game isn't a fun or easy play. There are definitely parts that drag on too long, and the game sorely misses a soft touch that Joel and Ellie provide.
Seconds and counting. Astronaut support feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
You're welcome, kiddo.
The flipping back and forth between Abby and Ellie is confusing. There's no getting away from that. Particularly at a certain point of Abby's mission, or Abby's story, I should say, where I really thought I was in a different time period than the one I was actually in. Now, a lot of hate for this game stems from the feeling that Naughty Dog tried to force the Ellie bad, Abby is good narrative. Now, I've got to be honest, when I was playing through, I personally didn't see it that way, as that black and white. What I do feel they tried to do was fast forward some emotional connection with Abby, kind of trying to make up for the lost time, as the player already has this incredible connection with Ellie and Joel from part 1. Now, on this front, the game does fail. I didn't like Abby. I thought she was unlikable. I thought the character generally just didn't connect with us. Was that because she just killed Joel? Maybe?
Are you guys planning a party?
Yes, it's your father's birthday, which coincidentally is my birthday.
I went along with the ride for Naughty Dog on this one, but I still couldn't connect with Abby, and that is a failing of the game without a shadow of a doubt. What I took from controlling Abby, however, was Naughty Dog asking the question, is life as easy as X is good and Y is bad? Are we always the good guys, and are they always the bad guys? There is glaring hypocrisy in the plot at the end, where Joel's brother manages to convince Ellie to go out and get revenge for Joel, and in turn to leave her new family behind. This ties in to what I said before, that this drags the game out a little bit too much, and this part could have been handled in a much better way. If it was me, I would have done that a bit differently. However, seeing Abby in the emaciated state she was in was important. To me, it underlined the brutality of the world, the mess humanity had been caught up in, but the way it came about wasn't right, and it needed some reworking. If I was the editor for this game, I would have definitely have cut parts out and made us get to that part in a different way than the way we got there. Yes, there are bizarre plot choices. Why on earth is there a heavenly pregnant woman on the front lines again? And the pacing is not great. The game definitely needed trimming by about 5 hours or so. Now, did I block out some of the plot holes sometimes? Yeah. But it did feel like a lot of the time, gamers were so angry at the death of Joel and the inability to exact their own revenge, that things that would pass gamers by were magnified by 1,000 here. I can feel the thumbs down coming. So in conclusion, in a world where so many innocent people are killed in the name of peace, so much of the media paints sections of society as wrong and the others as right, I feel Naughty Dog tried to pull off something very brave here, an exploration of the grey area between good and bad. In video games, we are accustomed to a suspension of belief or disbelief in relation to killing, and to a straightforward moral assumption that we are the goodies and everyone else are the baddies. Anybody on the other end of the reticle or on the shiv are really bad people and it's fine for us to kill them. The Last of Us Part 2 challenges both of these assumptions, and straight after we have suffered a traumatic loss of a beloved character we will never get to play again. Does this make for a fun game? No. Does it even make for a satisfying game? Maybe not for a lot of people who just want to break Abby's neck straight away. Did they even execute the whole plot and the whole game correctly? No. But is grief, death, or loss fun? No. Is life perfect? Definitely not. But it is all sadly part of life. And what this game does do is it makes for a fascinating piece of art and or social commentary on good and evil. The game is far from perfect, but it is an important game. The ending was moving, emotive, and honestly, to me, perfect. Narratively and emotionally, it's essential video gaming at its best. Overall, I'm going to say The Last of Us Part 2 is underrated when set against the bar of 78%. Is it better than the first? Definitely not. Is it a great game in its own right? Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. Bring on the damn votes. I'm scoring The Last of Us Part 2 at a light 9. Thank you for watching. This was my first over-under. Please like, share it, even if it brings down votes, whatever. Gaming's a hobby we all enjoy. It's about sharing our opinions. I'm just going to leave you with the final emotive scenes from The Last of Us 2, just to let the video roll out to that, just so you can kind of experience the kind of emotional effect the ending has. Stay safe and look after yourselves.
No. Just take him.